Hello and welcome to New Consciousness Activation. I'm very excited today to welcome two beautiful ladies, Nancy DeYoung and Alexandria Noble from QT Mastery, which stands for Quantum Transformation. So ladies, I will just let you jump in and add a little bit more detail about yourselves, and then we'll go from there. Nancy, would you like to start?
Sure. I have been doing this work since the early 90s, and I actually got started with it. I was going to a lady who was doing soul retrieval on me, and in trade for me making her a compost pit. So I sifted horse manure for days to earn clearings.
Wow.
Anyway, and then one day I went to see her and she was having a tough time. And so I jokingly said, well, maybe I should work on you. And she said, yes, you need to do that. And so she laid down on the table and I started seeing all this stuff. The energy was flowing through my hands, and it's like, it was pretty incredible. And so I asked her to teach me, and she said, yeah. Well, that year, a few months later, I went to Egypt, and when I was in the pyramid, it just opened up. It was like one of those things that happens in your life that transforms it forever. And so when I came back, I said, you've got to get me started with this. I want to know everything you know. So she did teach a class. And so that's how I got started doing the energy work. I'd done a lot of other things before that, but this particular thing that's called soul retrieval, that's how I got started doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's like one of the basics for my work. Our work. Alexandria does it too. So.
Great, thank you. Alexandria, do you want to tell us about yourself a bit?
Well, I guess I feel like I've always been a little bit intuitive and aware of things without really knowing it. And how I fully discovered it was I was doing furniture upholstery. And I thought at the time that I was just entertaining myself, saying, oh, this person that has this chair, and I would tell all this stuff about them. And my boss was the one that would go out and get the furniture and meet the people and be in the home. And she was just like kind of turning white going, oh my gosh, that's exactly right. Wow. And so I realized I could read people's energy off of furniture. And so, yes, from there I started taking classes. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to understand what I was seeing and how I was able to do that. I ended up moving to Colorado, where I met Nancy. And from my background of the classes I took, and then her background of the classes she took, we kind of joined forces and started doing etheric clearings.
You started doing what kind of clearings?
Well, we call them etheric clearings.
Etheric. Okay.
And that's because it's subtle. It's subtle energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So let's start with soul retrieval. So you mentioned that that's the foundation of your work. And can you explain a little bit to our listeners and our viewers what that is and what's the significance of it?
So soul retrieval is an old shamanic technique. And Sandra Ingerman has written a lot about that. She's taught a lot of workshops on it. And basically, it's the same thing. We've taken that and updated it. But the old technique was where the shaman would journey. Somebody would drum and the shaman would journey into the inner worlds and retrieve lost parts of the person and bring them back. And put them back into the person. Well, they may get one or two in a session, and it took the person a month or two or however long to integrate it. And we don't have time for that anymore. It's like we've got a lot of lost pieces. So by adding some quantum principles to this, it's like, which is intention is one of them that we work with. The other one is that this kind of goes to why it's QT mastery, is because the work is done in the quantum field, and you can bring back a gazillion pieces at once if you want, and through intention and just clearing them, they can be put back in, and the person can integrate them within 24 hours. So it's a huge step forward from the old shamanic way of doing it. Not that that isn't good. I mean, that certainly has benefited a lot of people to have that soul retrieval done. And then you take and combine that soul retrieval with releasements, like releasing energies from the bodies and those could be things like anger. And we take on stuff from other people a lot. Like a little kid who's abused, that anger that parent is feeling when that child is struck or yelled at, that goes into the energy field of that person, and they grow up with that, and it doesn't just magically go away. Well, sometimes through love or whatever, you know, but basically the imprint is still there. And so we lose pieces of ourselves to when we're operating from that wounding that we received as children or whenever, even if we've had an ideal childhood, it can still happen. And so we then, where was I going? I do these brain things. We've got our pieces are lost. So then we've lost our power, basically. Lost energy to these other people. And so in doing that, we react to things in ways that oftentimes aren't healthy. So, Alexandria, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just, but yeah, and how any kind of trauma or even perception of something that happened, it creates a pattern within you, and then you keep attracting that same program over and over and over in different ways until you finally can realize it to clear it. Right.
Now, you said that now you can do, you know, that before there was the old shamans, they used to do kind of one thing at a time, right? Or they would travel into the person's energy field and kind of retrieve one thing at a time. And right now in the quantum experience, you can do multiple things at the same time. So can you talk about why that is? What is the change? Why is it now that we can do things that could not be done before?
Okay, taking the quantum principles and adding it to it. For one thing, we do the work in the quantum field. We set up a quantum field to work in. So it doesn't matter whether the person is with us or clear across the other side of the planet. Right. It still works. And it's like intention. A lot of it is done through intention. It's like you intend something, and just by the fact of bringing these pieces back and intending that they be cleared to the person's energy today, because when they lost it as a child or growing up or earlier in life, some point, they're not that same person anymore. Their energy has changed. So if you put that piece back into the person the way it was when it left, plus it's got the wounding with it, that's not going to help. So just intending that these pieces are cleaned and cleared in the light is what I use. I suppose Alexandria does too. That it's easier to integrate them, and they can be done very quickly. And so it's also the quantum principle of that things are influenced by the intention of the observer. And so the person doing the work has got to be holding the highest intention for the client. Right. If they're not, we can be in trouble. So my intention in working with a person is always their best and highest good. And when the person comes to me, it's like they set their intention for what they want to happen. And then we go in and do whatever spirit brings to help them receive and clear whatever it is. And it can be what they came for. It could be something that they're not even aware of, you know, past lives get in there and all sorts of things.
Right. So Alexandra, let me ask you if you can follow up on that. So Nancy was talking about the pieces, you know, bringing the pieces back or putting them back in place. So can you explain to our viewers, give us an example of a piece? What is it that we'll lose when you are looking at these pieces that have been lost, that we have let go, that we want to integrate back? What are we talking about?
Well, a lot of times it will be our greatest gifts that get buried or hidden or lost because of traumas that have happened. Say you have a very creative piece that was expressing and somebody else shunned it or actually destroyed it and really shamed it or whatever. Just for an example, then that piece feels bad about itself and you kind of bury that piece in yourself. And so not only do you have that person's energy on top that shamed it or, you know, put it down, or then you put your own energy on top of it and bury it even deeper, labeling it bad. It's like it's a perspective that, oh, that's a bad thing. No, we can't show that part of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people bury them anywhere in their body. Sometimes they bury them out in the earth. Sometimes they try to dump them on somebody else. And here, when you get it back, it's actually one of the most creative, special parts of you. A lot of times that's can happen. That's just an example that I could think of.
Right. So what does it mean when you said we can dump it on somebody else or leave it somewhere on the earth, or like, so what does that mean?
Sometimes it's done with rituals that people will put things into the earth.
Okay. So that's what you do to intentionally let it go? Okay.
Intentionally. And then there's other times where somebody's just gets so angry and are blowing up at somebody else, yelling, arguing, blaming them for something, and not consciously dumping your energy onto that person. It's like, okay, you've got this part in you that feels bad about itself, and you feel like you're can't function with that piece, so you want to bury it and get rid of it. And it's like, here's anger is such a way to release and dump your stuff on somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of times you clear people, they got so much of other people's energy and don't even know they have it. And then sometimes people will take your parts, thinking they're protecting you, or taking them because they're jealous of them and they made you feel bad about it. So you're like, oh yeah, take it. Yeah, I want you to be happy. I want you to love me. A lot of it's just people wanting to be loved.
Right.
That they will get rid of parts of themselves. And trauma always fragments us out, and you just don't even think about it. It's just fragmenting out, and that's what the soul retrieval is, really getting back all your pieces. And now it's like we can get them all back in a very short amount of time. I think the time that we're in, too, time and space, our universe, where we're at as a collective, I think there's so many people that have opened their minds and expanded their thinking to the possibilities. And the more people, it's like a little pinhole in light, the more people that join on that consciousness, it gets bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
That speeds it up too. Yeah.
So there are two things I wanted to follow up on. I hope I don't forget them. So one is, you mentioned that there are things we might have picked up, energy from other people or the thinking from other people, or we might have given our, like for example, being angry at somebody, we pass our own stuff to somebody else. And you said we don't even know that we've done it. And I'm guessing that in vast majority of us, we don't know what we do to each other energetically. Can you talk about that? What is it that the energy behind it, and what happens when we pick up stuff from others and we give our own stuff to others? Nancy, if you'd like to.
Sure. It can happen like if you're in a job situation and you've got friends there and you're telling them what you're going to do, and they're going to, you know, that someday you want out of this situation and you're going to go start your own business. And so friends, family, coworkers are all going to tell you, oh, you can't do that. You know, who do you think you are? And that's like trying to keep you safe. But people also kind of like us in the little box they've got us in. So oftentimes they don't want to encourage somebody to step out and do something different, because that means changes.
Right.
So that's one way that can happen. This fragmentation thing, we lose parts of ourselves so many times. I mean, we give them away to churches, you know, when we believe everything we're told. I mean, you know, there's a lot of different churches and it's a lot of different stories that they tell. And so it's like, I think we have to take and assimilate that and integrate it in our own way, what's right for us. That's just my opinion. But then there's the military. Think about the programming that people go through when they go into the military. To be able to go and do what they have to do, I mean, that's all programming, and they've agreed to it. I mean, that's part of it, is their agreement. At least it has been. I mean, if they're we haven't had a draft for a long time, so I'm not talking about that. But otherwise, it's a choice that these young people have made. So we give away a lot of our power in situations like that. We give away power to families in doing what's expected of us. You know, whether we or not, we do it because it's an expectation. There's command performances. There's, you know, I mean, all the things that families do. Friends, same thing there. There's just situation after situation that we go through where we lose these pieces, and we don't know we're doing it. But like Alexandria said, our reason for doing it is because we want people to like us. We've always got a reason for why we do it. But how many people are aware of it? I don't know. Probably not most.
Right. And it sounds like, especially, you know, in the past when we've grown up and, you know, parent, for example, any authority figure really would have the power to take, you know, peace away from us anytime they've inserted their we've adopted their thinking as our program, right? So in hypnotherapy, we talk about programs running in the back of our minds, which is the same thing. It's those, it's that worldview that we've accepted from somebody else, that we've adopted, some sort of loop that keeps running and we are operating from it. And so anytime that happens, then you're saying that we lose that authentic part of ourselves and replace it with somebody else's thinking. Is that correct?
Yes.
And a lot of it's through the emotional body, the patterns. Like a lot of times they say, oh, well, if your mother had breast cancer, your grandmother had breast cancer, well, your odds of getting breast cancer are really high. And there's the biological part, which in the quantum work, you can actually change DNA, but it's more about the pattern of how you've been raised to emotionally handle situations. Just for an example, like in my family, you know, the men ate first, then the kids ate, and then the women ate when it was cold if there was some left. I mean, there was a pattern of, like Nancy said, expectation that you just grow up in and you follow. Now, part of you thinks, well, this isn't right, but you're taught to suppress that emotion. And
Right.
so you suppress, then there's guilt because you don't feel good about it. And boom, here comes your breast cancer, you know?
Right.
And by clearing the emotional body and balancing it, and that's, brings it to consciousness that that pattern is going on and that, yes, it's not working well for you.
So that brings then a question, especially for people that maybe are older and that have grown up in with a certain pattern of thinking. Well, this is the way life is. This is what's expected. This is what good women behave like. They eat less, the last. Or this is how good children behave. It's a huge shift for them. I mean, it's not that easy to just shed, the sort of societal almost expectations. Is it? Like, how do you help people? I mean, how do we go through that shift? Because I would imagine it's not easy for most people to just step out of it and be different.
It gets a lot easier the more of your pieces you get back. When you get back your childhood, you get back your innocence, you get back your confidence, you get back your self-worth, and you let go of all of the programming, the beliefs, and whatever, it gets a whole lot easier. And this is what we do in clearings, is help people get those pieces back and to release what they've taken on. And then there's the other thing of energy cords, where we energetically connect into another person and take their energy. And so those cords can all be disconnected too. Well, maybe not all at one time, because you can't change your world too quickly because you wouldn't fit in it anymore. It's like, but the clearings are always guided, and everything that's done is always done for that person's highest good. And I've never had anybody have a hard time afterwards. It's always, the feedback I get is how wonderful things have been. So it's all soul guided.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and when I said difficult, I didn't mean through your sessions. I meant just for people, in everyday life that have not gone through this experience, that have not gone through a soul retrieval session, to simply think, well, I'm going to start abandoning old beliefs. That's quite a shift, and it may be difficult if it's done unguided. That's what I meant.
And more power to the person who can do that. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When a person, that's the first step, is making up your mind and just observing how much of this is programmed beliefs and behaviors. Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes back to the simple thing of know thyself. It's really look at something, a pattern that's going on in your life, look at your belief system about it, look how it keeps reoccurring, or you keep drawing in the same kind of people from the outside that are reflecting a certain thing. It's like you really just go in there and dissect every little thing. And once you change your perspective and go get your aha, like, oh, I see what I'm doing, that I keep drawing that same kind of guy that keeps doing this to me. It's like you identify it. Just by identifying the pattern will change it.
Absolutely. And now, Joe Dispenza talks about the percentage of original thoughts that we have during the day. And I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's really small. The vast majority of everything we think and do throughout every day is so programmed. We are sort of just replaying the same worldview, the same behaviors, the same beliefs, the same thoughts. And that's why it can be quite a shift for people to sort of say, oh my God, I've just been playing in this loop, and there's a whole other world outside of it. So let's shift to clearing then. If we've been giving away the power or the energy, and we've been fragmenting ourselves and then taking on stuff that's not ours, which all of us have been doing throughout our lives. What happens to us then when we begin to collect that energy back and give away what's not ours? What's the impact on the person? What does it do to us as we begin to reconnect to ourselves? Anyone?
Well, our lives get happy. We become happier people. I mean, we have to, you know, because we're more ourselves. We're more in sync with ourselves. So that's one thing. Things can start working better in our lives. We have ideas and directions that we may not have had otherwise. Our relationships usually get better. Relationships are huge. It's like, because when we change ourselves, we change how we interact with other people, and we don't need them to reflect stuff back to us, you know. So what they're reflecting is the good stuff, not all of this wounding we have. So it's a lot, relationships get a lot better. I've seen that. Probably one of the biggest things is relationships, but that's not the only. So the relationship with self as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to just go back for a second to what you just said, reflecting, because that's a very interesting kind of concept to look at. The fact that, and it gets back into that quantum, you know, field again, the fact that when we are seeing things around ourselves, they really just reflect. It's like looking in the mirrors, because we are all one sort of being looking at itself, right? So we're looking in the mirrors and they're reflecting it, and then we shift within ourselves, and the reflection changes. So Alexandria, can you maybe talk a little bit more about that, the concept of what we see reflected to us?
Yeah, I believe that you always, to me, anybody that's in my life is showing me reflections of myself. And so if there's, you know, positive ones, if you've done your clearing and you're seeing yourself and you're feeling happy, you attract those kind of people. But when you have some buried aspect of yourself that's really not happy, you pretend like it on the outside, but really there's something going on underneath, you still will attract those negative people or those negative energies, someone that's always going to be unhappy or complaining about something. And that's your opportunity to see that part of yourself that's so buried that you can't see it. You don't feel it, but you have it buried. And no, I'm happy. I'm good. I have no problem with that. But yet there's a couple people around you that have that issue. It's like really looking at what are they reflecting to. And it can be the opposite. You can be playing the opposite side of the duality there. But, and it's like, if you identify that part of yourself and what that person is reflecting to you, literally it can change overnight. The next time you see them, it's like, wow, that person really has changed. They're not negative anymore. And it's like, you know, and it's like all this, and it's you've changed. And so you don't need that reflection anymore. And a lot of times the relationship will change. Sometimes the relationship will fall away because you don't need that reflection anymore. And now you're going to attract in other people that are happy or flowing with life better, and even things that are going to cause illnesses. It's, you know, it's all there for us. It's, you know, we just have to see it.
Yeah, beautiful. So with emotional clearing, what types of issues do people deal with? What types of emotions? What is it really about? What does it clear?
Wow, anything. I mean, yeah, anything and everything. Go ahead, Alexandria, you're up.
Well, we're just pretty much all one, and there's certain basic emotions that we all have, that we all have within us. It's like you can look at somebody else and blame and look at that, but we all have the same thing, really. We play them out in different ways. We reflect them in different ways. We have different ways of looking at it, but you know, the game is all the same. We're here to learn and grow and experience, and And the more you balance that emotional body, the more things just flow and come to you, and creativity and understanding, and it just kind of grows.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's books that are written like, you know, people store anger in the liver. I mean, it's not always true. No, we're not black and white, but there's definitely emotional patterns in us that we all are alike.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so you mentioned before that, you know, or let me actually rephrase it. Once somebody clears their emotions, right, or emotional patterns, and let's say they bring their pieces together, does that mean that they're good forever? Or do we still continue to a certain extent to give away our energy at some point and take on other people's stuff at some point? Does the pattern still continue? Do we still need to continue the clearing, or once it's done then you're good?
Well, there's a lot of different layers to everything, you know,
Okay.
and so it may be that you've cleared it on one level. The way I kind of like to look at it is like going up a spiral staircase. And so you come back around to that same point, but you're at a different place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we are, everything does get better, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean it's totally finished. It can be, but there may be a little bit more to do with it too. That just all depends on the person, on the situation, and how ingrained that particular emotional pattern is. So yeah, and you cleared in one, like, you know, in the emotional body, it usually will clear in the physical body. Since the physical is denser, it might take it a little bit longer than in the emotional, but not necessarily. That can happen very quickly too. So
well, and I'm thinking about, yes, but I'm thinking about it in terms of, you know, every day we go through different things, and we're surrounded by different people, we're surrounded, different circumstances take place, and then there are also sort of on a national level, there are things that are happening on the global level, things that are happening. So is it natural for people to continue to take certain things on energetically, even if they're clearing their own stuff, but there are other things that are happening around us? Can we still take things on that way?
it could happen that way. And we've made agreements. We've made agreements with the world. We've made agreements with our town, with our neighborhood, with all of these different levels we're involved in. And so the even if it's not directly in our life, like we may not have war on our soil here, we're still energetically affected by the war that's going on the other side of the planet, or the typhoons or the hurricanes or the earthquakes. There's still a connection. And I'm sure you've heard many people talk about 9/11 and how that affected them.
Right.
Now, that being said, it will trigger us more so if we have unhealed things that are being brought to the surface, and chances are pretty good that's what's happening too. But yeah, just the fact that we live here, you know, we're experiencing it. Like, we don't have the fires right here that are going on in Montana and Canada, and yet we get to have the smoke from them, you know. So it's like we are being affected by it, even though our house isn't burning down, or forest or whatever. But it did you want to say something, Alexandra?
Yeah, I was just saying, but the more you clear and balance within yourself, the more it doesn't attach onto you. It's like attracts like. You still are aware of it, but it's not affecting you and throwing you off balance.
Right, you're able to stay more balanced, so it doesn't completely, topple you over, but we still get affected by things. So I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Jim Self, and he talks about, he also, teaches mastery, alchemy and mastery of alchemy. And he talks about doing this thing before he goes to bed. So every night before he goes to bed, he lets go of the energy that has attached itself to him from other people that he has kind of taken on in the course of the day. And he also returns the energy that, yes, and he collects back parts of himself that he has given away in the course of the day. So it's almost like, that's what I'm hearing from you, sort of, that's a mini soul retrieval on a daily basis. And I think if we give that intention of, it allows us to sort of balance ourselves on a daily basis, but it also acknowledges that we can keep sort of taking that stuff on and keep giving parts of ourselves away, and that we're not failing, if that continues to happen to a certain extent. But yes, I do agree that we are able to go through it in a much more stable manner when that happens on a daily basis.
That's a really good idea of what Jim's doing. And it's so simple.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add to that is to clean those pieces off before you stick them back.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
It's like, because if they've been with somebody else, they got other people's energy on them.
That makes sense.
So if they're cleaned off, and you just do it through intention. I mean, you ask the light or whatever you look to purify those pieces, bring them to your energy, and then bring them back in. It's just a little in there that will make a lot of difference.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. All right, so let's talk about substances. I know you do some work with substance abuse, but I'm thinking about anything that we basically take in, right? Anything around us, it affects us in a certain way. And whether you have abused a substance or you just take it in, any foods or anything that we drink or eat, that has an effect on us. So can you ladies talk about that, and we'll go from there. Alexandria or Nancy?
Well, I guess the example that came to my mind, I think it was a yogi that came up with this, but it's like you think of eating meat that has been abused its whole life. It has seen, all its clan get murdered in horrible ways, a lot of pain, and then that emotions, that trauma is trapped in that meat. So you're eating that consciousness. And then even taking it to a step farther with so many people are having problems with grains. And what he was saying was that even the grains, they're not consciously grown on your farm in love. They're mass produced by these big machines, and it's changing the consciousness in our food, and it's affecting us. We don't digest it well. We're having all kinds of health issues over it. People are becoming allergic to it. I mean, there's a lot of other components to it, but that was the example that came to my mind, that, yeah, absolutely everything affects us, but we can bless our food. There are a lot of people work with water, the consciousness of water, and how just by putting sounds in it and putting your intentions of love in it, you can change the whole frequency of it. And if we just do that with our food and water, it's going to make a difference.
Right. Thank you. Nancy, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I just want to talk about, for a minute, my book called Shaman's Vision, which has got a lot of information about different things and the programming we take on. Shaman's Vision is the sequel to Modern Shamans, and so it goes deeper into the programming that we receive and the drugs. And drugs are, well, where do you start with drugs? And a lot of pharmaceutical ones aren't a lot better than recreational drugs,
Right.
because they have energies attached to them. And we give ourselves away. We give our power away to those beings that are attached to that. The ones I've seen with like meth, for instance, are these hideous little beings that just really make a person feel like they're not worth anything. Each drug has its own type of entity connected to it. Dare I say anything about marijuana?
Oh, go ahead.
Do I?
Yes, please.
And marijuana has an energy attached to it too. And I'm having trouble finding the words, and it's probably anyway, maybe it's better left unsaid.
Is there a difference between the medicinal use and recreational use in marijuana, or does it have the same type of impact, same energy?
What I found, I have a couple of clients who have worked a lot with medicinal use of marijuana, and it has the same effect on them as it does on other people. And basically it's taking a person's power or energy in a way that makes them feel like they need something else to feel better, to something outside themselves. And be this, I'm not judging it, I'm just, it just is what it is. But I know that the people who use marijuana, and this is a generalized statement, and it's basically the people I know are very sensitive people, and they have a really hard time living in this world that is so abrasive. It just makes their energy field hurt. And so marijuana does ease that, but again, it's looking outside of self for an answer to that. And I have friends, clients that have decided not to use marijuana anymore, and they say they cannot believe the difference in what it did to them when they were using it. Now, those are people who were frequent users. I mean, I'm not, people who use it once in a while, it's probably a whole different thing. But we use it on a regular basis. In fact, I had a haircut by a girl who had been out on her break before she did my haircut. It was like the worst haircut I've ever had. So, and she thought it was beautiful. So, hey, it just is what it is. And it's looking for answers outside of self, I guess would be.
Well, and anytime you're using it in the consciousness of the addiction aspect of it, that you need it to be out of pain, or that's when the entities come in, the addiction part of it. And a lot of times the addiction is your entity wanting that fix, wanting how it affects you so it can feed on your energy. And a lot of times just by clearing off the entities, the craving is not as strong. And clearing the emotional part of it that feels that it needs something to feel good about yourself. You really can eliminate addictions by clearing your emotional body and traumas and perspectives and hurts and angers and
Yeah, and I just want to follow up on that. Are all addictions similar in a sense that they provide an escape? Or is there, because you're talking about entities, so I'm wondering, are there different entities? And you said, you know, with this drug, there's the entity, or with meth, that's like little creatures or whatever. Are there different entities with different, does it look different? Is there a different feel to it? Are there different addictions sort of feeding different things in us? Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true. They are different.
Coffee entities, there's cigarette entities, and they clan together.
So how is alcohol different?
I suspect there's even a coffee entity.
I bet there is.
That are around.
Right.
I haven't looked at that one. I don't want to know about that one. Just kidding.
Yeah. So can you talk about maybe alcohol? How is that different, or what does it? So again, does the substance matter really to what we're trying to do to ourselves, or not?
Go ahead, Alexandria.
Well, I think they're all different and they all affect in a little bit different way. Alcohol is very much a numbing out and get happy, and you know, they say some dance to remember, some dance to forget.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people just get everybody's different. Some people want to numb out, and some people really want to keep dwelling in some past thing. They don't want to let it go. And it puts them in that state or frame of mind. Yeah, the coffee entity and the workplace, I mean, the programming behind that and what goes on, it's a fix. Anything that's a fix is going to be affecting you. And everything affects everybody in a little bit different way, too. But yeah, the entities themselves even look different.
Wow. Very interesting. So I wonder if you can do any kind of process or lead us through an exercise or anything that can help our viewers get a little taste of the clearing that you would do, or that they can do, or maybe you can show them a small technique that people can do on their own to just balance them out or clear emotions, or anything that you find appropriate for this format.
Do you want to do that, Alexandria, or do you want me to?
No, yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do a little soul retrieval, and this will be, and some releasement, and it will be generalized, you know, for everybody. So it's not a specific thing, but it, yeah, kind of like what Jim Self does at night.
Right.
So that sort of thing. Okay, so if everybody just, oh, and I want to preface this by saying that it will all be done under the guidance of your high self, your soul, whatever. So I'm not doing anything to you. That's another thing with this work, is it's more like observing what's happening and reporting it, because in the quantum world, it's the observer who is, and that's basically the role that we play in doing the clearings. So it's observing it and reporting to the person what's going on. So it's not like I'm trying to direct anything for anybody. If somebody doesn't want to do it, of course, that's their prerogative. Okay.
Right. Of course.
Just don't want to put anything on anybody.
Yeah. Of course.
Just because they happen to be listening. Okay. So, of course, just take a deep breath. And I work with a vortex of light that will take away whatever we're releasing so that it doesn't harm anybody. And it can, some of the things that we release may be things that are not working for our best and highest good. So the light can clear those and give them back to each of us in a way that will help us rather than a way that will harm us. So We've got the light working. So just intend that anything that you have lost, given away, or had taken, we've talked a lot about things taken. Things lost can be things that have just fragmented off because of an experience that you've had, like in a trauma, like a or something. A piece of you could be left at the scene of that accident. That's what I mean by lost. It just fragments off. And given away, we give away parts of ourselves freely. One of the things that we do a lot of is give away our heart to somebody. So those are the things: lost, given away, or had taken. Anything that you are ready to get back at this time. We call it from any time, any place, anyone. We ask that it be cleaned to your vibration and come back into its rightful place now. And your innate intelligence knows how to do this. So if you don't know how to do it, don't worry. Set the intention. This is all based on intention. Just intend that these pieces are coming back to you. And they could be coming in truckloads, or they could just be one or two. Doesn't matter. Whatever it is, just allow them to be clean to your vibration and come back in now. And as they come back in, there are going to be things that you can release. These could be attitudes, beliefs, opinions, stuck energies, just whatever it is, just let it go and let it, it could be anger, fear, resentment, hatred, attachments. Just allow those to go into that light, and the light will do with them whatever is perfect and right. If it needs to go back to somebody, these things can be cleared and cleaned, and they can have a healing with this as well. If it's yours and just hasn't been operating at the highest, it can be cleared and cleaned, brought up to your vibration today, and come back into its rightful place. Or, I mean, then it would come back into you, however is perfect and right for you. If you have any energy cords into anybody else, and you don't need those anymore, we want those cords disconnected from that other person and brought back into your energy field. And if anybody has cordings into you, these cordings have like a little hook on the end of them. So just intend that the tissue that surrounds that hook, be it etheric or physical or whatever, that it open up and just allow that hook to release easily. And then we want the light and sound to go into those wounds, clean them, clear them, and heal them to your highest potential. And then this is more of a process, but we'll do a quick one. If there's any agreements, commitments, contracts, anything that you have made with another person, with any being seen or unseen, with any places or any things, if they're not serving, and organizations, if they're not serving your highest good anymore, we want to disconnect from those as well. Okay, now just allow the beautiful light that you are to spread through your field and to integrate this work we've just done, integrate the pieces, heal any spots that need it, because we want this all to just integrate with ease and grace. And that light that you are can help you do that. And so it is. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I want to ask you one last question. Let's go back to where we started, shamanic work. Your books, Nancy, are about shamanism and the modern shamans. Can you tell us a little bit about what is a shaman and how has shamanic work changed since, the ancient times till now? What has shifted, if anything?
One of the biggest ways it's shifted is that today we can all do it. And that's the point of that book, is we're all modern shamans. And we've talked a lot about how that has changed from the beginning, with it being just one-on-one with the shaman, and getting back just a few pieces and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, we're all modern shamans. We all have that ability to do our own healing, integrating work. And sometimes we need somebody to kind of guide us through it, but for the most part, we all have that power within us to do that. I mean, we've got everything we need to be and do everything that we need to be and do. And that is probably the biggest change in shamanism, is that belief that we all are divine beings. It's not, somebody has to be that go-between between us and the higher power, or that we need tools like, and I mean things like, now I hate to say this because they are helpful, but things like crystals and so on, they're helpful, but we don't need them. We have everything we need within ourselves. And I used to buy all of these things back in the early days. I mean, I had Atlantean tool there was, I had every kind of crystal there was, all this stuff. And I found I didn't need any of it. I could do this stuff just with my intention. So that's the biggest, probably.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most beautiful changes that I'm seeing. And as we're activating our consciousness, of course, as we're talking in these conversations, it's the shift in the types of assistance that is offered by practitioners like you. It's this going away from being the expert or the someone who can fix somebody else, the healers that used to, or the channelers that would give you the information, that would heal you, that would do stuff to you to get you whole again. And there's a whole beautiful shift towards sort of a coaching approach to everything, that, the real high quality practitioners today would give you the tools and would help you learn how to do it yourself. Now, they can be guiding you through the process, but they're empowering you to do it on your own. And so I think that's reflected in that shift in sort of shamanic work. And Alexandria, can I ask you also to maybe speak to that? And also, how would you define who is a shaman for those of us that maybe don't know too much about it? How would you define a shaman?
Anyone that's attracted to working with energy and has that humanitarian, you want to help people. It's just kind of ingrained in your being, that it's your love, it's your passion.
Mhm.
And yeah, anyone can do it themselves. We don't need to have somebody else, but it's nice to have the reflection. Sometimes
Right.
it's like anyone, some people are just more mental, some people are more, they want to do Olympics, some people just are attracted to the healing fields, the healing
Right.
arts.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
One other thing I want to say about how shamanism has changed is
Mhm.
I originally wrote Modern Shamans, which I just happen to have a copy of.
Oh, great.
I wrote that back in the 96, I think, originally. And
Mhm.
I originally wrote that for practitioners because people at that point were into doing their own work. But then
Right.
I put the book away and I didn't publish at that time. And I drug it out in 2005 or 4. It's, I don't know, somewhere around 10 years later, say.
Mhm.
And it's a whole different ballgame. In that 10-year period, people's the consciousness shifted so much that people
Mhm.
wanted to know how to do all this stuff themselves.
Right.
Yes, we need a helping hand sometimes. I still call Alexandria, when I need a helping hand or another point of view. But a lot of it we can be doing ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's a modern shaman.
And the body heals itself. We just need
Mhm.
to get the blocks out of the way so that the body can do its thing.
Yeah. And that's really the beauty, and that's why I wanted to have this summit, because I wanted people to see that they have the power and they have, if we can just share the tools, we can all become the modern shamans. And so that's beautiful. Thank you both so much. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about anything that's coming up for you now that you want to bring to the attention of our viewers, where they can find you and what kind of things you offer. So just promote away. Tell them what they can find on your website.
Okay, what Alexandria and I are offering is I do have a newsletter that goes out from the site, and she occasionally might write something for it.
How could you be better at that?
We're hoping this encourages her to do more of that.
Right.
And so I do have a website, and anybody can go on it, which is qtmastery.com, and go to the contact page, and there's a way to sign up for the newsletter. It's free. It doesn't come out regularly. It comes out if there's something that I really want to say. I will be offering a free download of Modern Shamans for 5 days. Natalie, how are we going to do that?
There's a link in the email that people have received,
Okay.
and there's a link to the download. So that's going to be available.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's the other thing. And I can be reached through the website. Alexandria could be too. And just go on the contact page. And I think the website pretty much tells you about what we do. And just contact us through that. That would probably be the easiest.
All right. Alexandra, anything else you'd like to add? Or about anything else?
Anything at this moment, but that we do distance or in person.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Ladies, thank you both so much. This was wonderful and just feels very healing, and really something that can help people make a real difference in their lives. So thank you so much.
Thank
you, Natalie. Appreciate you taking the lead on this and allowing us to participate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.